Okay, welcome everybody. Benjamin, Danielle, thanks for joining me again. This is like a working title, La Founders, episode 1, episode 2, whatever you want to call it. So really thank you so much for being here. And I am super excited about, hopefully this being an episode of many, many to come. Just to tell you both, how I envision this podcast going. 2 key things. I want to put the pains and really expose founders like yourselves and to people that want to be founders and entrepreneurs, to yourselves that you've had. But furthermore, there's another string which you will see on upcoming episodes that we've got planned, where typically I'm someone who likes to introduce person A to person B. A week ago, you two didn't know each other, and now you've been filming content, with each other, and you're going to be doing some work together as well. I think that there's so much value that I personally receive unintentionally when I'm introducing founder A to founder B. I know founder A, I know what they do, and I know founder B, which is why I put them together. There's synergy there, but they've never met. And I think there's so much value to be learned about, how does a founder react to meeting someone for the first time? How do they convey in a very quick manner on a timed schedule call their narrative, their business in a quick, efficient manner, and then learn the other person's business, and then not only learn the business, instantly try and find synergy and execute something that they can do together. And so many times I've been on these calls, and I'm just thinking, wow, I wish other people heard what I was listening to right now. I've got like a front row seat to like a golden show. So I would like to translate that into a podcast, and I'm going to have episodes like this where it's more about the why of being a founder. But I think furthermore, as I start to and continue to introduce founder A to founder B, I'd love to just share that with people that might be interested.
Absolutely. Love that. And
Love
I'm
it.
great to be part of it.
Yeah, super grateful to be here.
What do we think of La Founders?
Love the name.
Yeah.
And
You can be honest.
Looking forward to seeing a great logo out there, and
yeah.
we'll be here for on your journey.
Cool.
Definitely. Can't wait for the next podcast.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's get started, huh? Okay. Welcome back, guys. Here we go again.
Thanks for having us.
No,
Thank
of
you.
course. It's a working title, I think. La Founders. What do we think?
I like it.
I love it.
Founders are a bit la, and we are in LA. So let's see how that goes. We'll get some feedback.
Let's do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me again. I think that above all, this could serve as a really useful platform for people to learn about what it is to be a founder and follow individual founders like yourselves on your journey and take much from that. But without further ado, just as a reminder, Danielle Muntain, founder of Creatorversity, and Benjamin Albert, founder of Quick. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Ladies first, Danielle, how's it going?
Amazing. I'm so happy to be back. Thank you for having us again.
Of course. Benji, all good?
Fantastic. Looking to get going on this, and loving the podcast.
Good. Okay, so let me just start with something nice and simple, not too deep at all. Danielle, why did you become a founder?
Not deep at all. Why did I become a founder? That is an amazing question. We only have one life, and I think it's so important to be aware of the time we do have on this planet. And it's so important to be able to do what you love, because when you're filling every day with doing something that you love, it's such an amazing energy that you bring into your life and into other people's lives. And I think it's just the most authentic thing that you can do is creating something from a place of love and joy and passion. So I've never wanted to work for anyone else. So I started as a founder very young, and I always wanted to be able to travel the world as well, and be able to have full control over my life and have the time and energy for the things that matter most to me and the people that matter most to me. And so ultimately, I think the first inspiration was I just wanted to be able to travel the world and do whatever I wanted. And so that kind of drove me to get into entrepreneurship and start different businesses.
Very cool.
Love
That was your why, in other words, traveling the world. And I mean, you were doing that a lot, right?
Yeah, I started actually when I was 20. I booked a one-way ticket to Spain, and
As one does.
Yeah. And I started one of my first businesses before that. But that whole experience of booking a one-way ticket and forcing myself out of my comfort zone, when I was 20, moving across the world in a place I didn't know a single soul. And I just had to figure things out.
How was your Spanish?
It was bien.
Yeah, I like that.
Muy bien. No, actually, I took Spanish in high school and middle school, so my Spanish was okay. But I learned the Mexican Spanish, not the Spain Spanish. So when I got to Spain, I was like, wow, people are talking so fast. It was so hard, but it forced me to get really, really fluent in Spanish. So I eventually got a lot more fluent.
Very cool.
Yeah, but I think that experience in itself really drove me to really think outside the box. And I think that was actually a very pivotal time for me as a founder. The amount that I learned and the amount that I was forced out of my comfort zone, it really drove me to be able to think big, which I think looking back, it really helped me in my life as a founder.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's a great start. Benji, no pressure. Benji, why did you become a founder?
I've always considered myself to be a problem solver. And one of my first businesses was an IT and telecommunications company. And that idea stemmed from me working at a clothing business and in their IT department. And I found that if I can run an IT department for one specific company, there is a chance, or there's a good chance, that I can do this for a number of different companies. And that's what made me form my first business in the IT space. And I wanted to solve issues for other businesses or even consumers. And coming on to Quick and moving to the US, I had that issue myself where I couldn't bank and build credit. And I wanted to solve issues for people. And I think that's the key part of why I'm a founder, is solving issues for people and establishing businesses that solve problems in different spaces.
And in other words, having the freedom to choose the problem that you're solving.
Exactly.
And how you solve it. And
exactly. And I think it always merits to what I've been through as a person, whether it's, being that local IT company in London.
When were you working for a fashion brand? How long ago was that now?
God, it's when I was 16. So
Wow.
about 15 odd years ago. Yeah. And yeah, that was my first job. It really got me to learn about business. I was working under one of the directors over there, so it really gave me an insight on how businesses are ran. That was like a decent sized business as well, that clothing business. They did a good chunk of UK business in the clothing industry. And when I wanted to adapt and move into setting up my own business, I learned a lot from that, and I think that is what started my journey and becoming an entrepreneur.
Very cool. I mean, firstly, just for anyone that doesn't know, and Danielle, I don't know if you'll know this either. Unfortunately, I've known Benjamin here for a very, very long time. I mean, I remember when you were 15, 16 years old, not even working for a clothing brand yet. Whenever someone would mess up their laptop, you go to Benji.
Yeah, I was
and
that
you'd
guy.
confiscate it for a few days.
Yeah.
Give me the weekend,
Yeah.
spit it back out, and I'd give me some cash.
Yeah, that was it. And I think for me, that was just the problem solving aspect, and just wanted to solve issues rather than, a consumer or a business going into a high street store and getting ripped off or something like that. We were there to help people.
Would you say at that age you knew what it meant to be a founder?
I think it's a good question.
Because
I think
there's hustling
yes,
and bustling, which is great.
Yes.
And there's being a founder.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's a great question. I think I didn't know at that time what it was to be a founder. I also think that it took time to adapt into being a founder, as well as a founder and CEO. I think a founder can be a little bit different as well as being a CEO as well as a founder. So I think it took me a little bit of time to adapt into that role, learning from other people, shadowing people, and shadowing businesses as well. I think that was a key part of my learning. Now, founding Quick, I think the difference I found that there is a massive difference, and Jay, I think you would correct me here, is I think there's a massive difference between the UK market and the US market, and I've had to adapt to that quite quickly. When you talk about a small, medium-sized business in the UK, you're talking maybe $1 million in turnover, £1 million in turnover. But when you're looking at a small, medium-sized business in the US, you're talking maybe a £5 million turnover, $5 million turnover. So it's like a big chunk, big difference. Employee structure is a lot different. All the, the legal aspects, the accounting aspects, it's different, and I had to really adapt to that, learn that, and I'm pounding through and learning on my way.
I can see you brought a show and tell product for us
Yeah,
today.
you just got to keep the branding going. I've learned that in the US. Narrative is key.
Don't worry, I'll charge you extra for that.
Marketing is key, and you've got to push out as much as you can.
For sure. I mean, now, Danielle, let me ask you this. Challenges being a founder. I mean, actually, let me ask you the same question I just asked Benji. How long ago was when was your first paycheck that you received doing something on your own back?
16.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what
So
was
near
that?
enough the same.
Yeah, and what was that paycheck for?
Fashion styling.
So in the clothing space, fashion space.
Yeah, no, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Benji, listen, I'm working here, right? I'm getting there.
Yeah, I started off in fashion. So that's kind of how I got into the world of content and Creatorversity was through fashion. I started off as a fashion stylist. I started off interning for a fashion stylist, and then I was assisting her, and then I started working for different agencies as a stylist. And that's kind of what propelled my whole career in the content and media industry. I realized while doing photo shoots for different like mall campaigns and brand campaigns and high fashion shoots that I want to have full creative control. So I bought myself a camera, and I wanted to be able to do more than just the styling aspect. I was always very creative, and I loved being able to kind of be the whole like brains behind the whole concept and everything. So taught myself how to shoot content on my camera. And this was kind of before the word creator or influencer was even a thing. Yeah. Every brand had to use big scale agencies to be able to shoot content. And so it's been really cool to see how the whole world and industry has changed that, as a creator, you can shoot all the content for specific brand campaigns or whatever. So it's been really cool to see the whole industry in itself. But I was always in the industry in a sense. Like I always loved to do photography and shoot my own content for fun. And like when I was younger, I went to an art school, and I remember doing we would make these little commercials and skits. Like when we were 10 years old, we would be filming, me and some of my friends, we would just film ourselves creating content, I guess back then, just for fun. So I think it's always been in me. I've always really loved it and really enjoyed doing it.
Did you have a mentor growing up? Like someone you aspired to be, someone in the business space that you wanted to shadow more? Like for me, I did. I'll go into it after you.
Yeah. So I feel like I didn't have an exact mentor, but what
You're a pioneer, like you said, there was no creator influencer.
Yeah. I mean, looking back now, I feel of course, Gary Vee, I found his YouTube when I think that was when I had was just kind of starting getting more into content, and when I was in school, and I found his YouTube, and I was like, okay, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. And then it kind of propelled me to start just doing my own research in social media. And I think I was listening to honestly a lot of different founders and entrepreneurs on YouTube, and just trying to research as much as possible of where kind of the industry was going. And that's kind of what started it, really. Yeah.
And how much of the content that you were watching and looking at was to do with being a founder as opposed to the industry or, what it is to be a founder of a business?
For sure. I think then, honestly, I probably had no idea what it actually took to be a founder. Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart. I think that, learning from mistakes and actually taking actionable steps and learning as you go is so important. And it's we can be a student for life with everything. And I think there's so much value that goes into, having proper coaching from people that have actually done it. And honestly, looking back, I wish that I had that, really. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I started Creatorversity, was because it's what I wish I had when I first started. And I took the long route. Actually, why I kept going back to traveling to Bali was, the digital nomad kind of community. it still is a hub there, but it was such a massive hub, and there was a lot of creators there, and so I felt like I had to keep flying back to Bali to like learn from other creators,
Yeah.
you know? And so I spent so many years learning and traveling the world, like trying to learn from other people. And so, yeah, and then that made me realize, wait, there's no main education hub for creators. This is crazy. This is one of the fastest growing industries on the planet right now. And so that's what really inspired me to start Creatorversity.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
That's awesome. Just touching on the mentorship piece, you kind of brought it up there briefly. I was going to ask, where do you generally get your day-to-day advice from? Not from someone you know, but from like sources like YouTube. But maybe you could answer both.
Yeah, so going back a step, I think my mentor growing up and working for this clothing company, I really learned a lot from the director over there. And she was a remarkable woman. She is a remarkable woman. And what she did is she created this atmosphere around everyone that she was working with, that where things just need to get done and there's a way of doing it. And she would instill that in her employees, and those employees are still her employees to this day. And the way that she did that was, in a calm, gentle manner. I've been around people that, they felt like the aggressive approach is better. I've sort of not like that. I like to keep a good relationship in the office, and that's what I learned from day one with her. And I think, shadowing her, learning how she, used to manage her employees, manage her business, and scale it is something that I'm, is instilled in me for my businesses that I've been part of, and quick as well today.
That's awesome. And in terms of, like you said, that's more like temperament and how to carry yourself, which is super important. And everyone's got different management styles. And I will agree that you are definitely on the calmer side and the gentler side, which is great. In terms of, whenever I speak to you generally about being a founder, the challenges that you've had, and you just whip out this knowledge, and no offense, I'm like, where's he getting this from? Tell me, how have you educated yourself in the last couple of years outside of your own personal experience?
Yeah. So LinkedIn, I scroll through LinkedIn, I read about other founders, what their journeys are, reading out about VCs, talking about how they work with founders, the difference between a bootstrap founder versus a venture capital backed founder. There are a lot of differences. And I think what I've been trying to understand is that space of, VCs versus bootstrapping businesses. And LinkedIn's a really good tool for that. And I've just been watching content through videos like podcasts like this, reading about things, and just looking at, founders' exits and unicorns that founders have been part of. And I've just learned from that.
Yeah. So podcasts, LinkedIn.
Definitely.
Cool. Very good.
Definitely.
And Danielle, same.
Content, just general content is great.
Anything you could recommend to Danielle in terms of any particular podcast you're listening
Honestly, I'm more of a scroller. So like when I just scroll through LinkedIn, because it knows what I like, as it does, it just comes up with some really great stuff, and I just screenshot it and then I come back to it. But it's honestly like just following the right, the big founders, the unicorns, and the big VC companies, VC funds. That really helps in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing you both touched on is I am good at doing this. However, I'm doing it for someone else. Why don't I do it for myself and scale that? Sounds great on paper, and obviously commercially you can see the benefit of that. But being a founder is very challenging, and I'm sure there are lots of misconceptions. Feel free, I'll let you both jump in, whoever wants to go first. What are some of the misconceptions you would say around being a founder? And how are you tackling that, or how did you tackle that?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's a great question. I think there's a lot of people who look at a founder and they're like, maybe I'm a little bit jealous of them. They're a founder. They don't work for anyone. They work their own hours. We don't have hours. We work 24/7. Yeah, we're always on our phones. We're always on our emails. There's rarely any time that we can switch off. And I think that is the misconception around founders, like, oh, they're on a beach somewhere, or they've gone to Mexico, or something like that. It's really that we're really invested in our business, and we want it to scale, we want it to do well. But the way that we do that, it might be unconventional to someone who's working a 9-to-5 job. And I think that's the misconception about founders, where we're not fully invested in the business, but trust me, we are really there, and we're there working all the time to scale our business.
And what about maybe a misconception that threw you off, right? So for example, I know you, I mean, you were always someone who works around the clock and you're there when you're needed and you're very reactive. But maybe something that you didn't expect to be the case about being, going out and doing it yourself. Anything?
I think going out and doing it ourselves, I think the one thing that I wanted to do myself, as I said, is I'm the problem solver. I want to solve problems, and finding something or looking at someone doing what I'm doing or something alike what I'm doing, I want to be that person steering the ship. I've always been that person steering people. People come to me for advice about different things, and I am that guy who wants to help people and solve issues. And I think that is the one thing that I push out on a daily basis.
Very good. Very good. Danielle, misconceptions?
Oh, so many misconceptions, for sure. I think maybe the first one, people assuming it's going to be easier than it is, and not knowing the amount of sacrifices you have to make, and also just how differently you have to think and how differently you have to run your life. Like you said, it's 24/7. You can't really shut off, and that's why I think some of the best founders, like, you have to have that obsession, that's really going to drive forward. And, you will come off like with so many different blocks and like limiting beliefs, and actually the amount of personal growth that you really have to do as a founder, it's immense. And so I think there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make, for sure. But you also have to, that's why I think being obsessed and like really loving what you're doing, and you're not going to love every second of it, for sure, but just having that passion is going to drive you forward so much more.
So happy that you said about the sacrifices, because that is key. Every founder makes a sacrifice, whether it's, moving to a different city, moving to a different country.
Mm-hmm.
There are sacrifices. When you raise money for a business, you don't want to, or if you're bootstrapped, you don't want to take a salary at the start because you want to pump so much more into the business. That is a massive sacrifice. You're taking a step back from earning yourself personally, mm-hmm. but you want to scale the business with the money that you've invested yourself or that you've raised. And that's a key thing that people miss out on. You're not, sometimes the first 12 to 18 months, you're not earning a single cent from the business, and you just want to see it succeed and grow, and you pump your whole entire energy into that. And you, as you said, your obsession with the business becomes immense.
You're touching on something really interesting. I once had Elon Musk say, why is it that when someone has a child, has a baby, people throw a baby shower and they give them presents, and I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Having a business is like having a baby, and I think that should be celebrated, and people should be coming and throwing, cash at you. And to that point, it must be very lonely actually being a founder, especially at the beginning. And there was a couple of questions I wanted to ask you, but now just to spontaneously touch on this. Has it felt lonely at any point?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Because when you're building something, the amount of time and energy you need to put into this is insane. And I think learning how to say no as well, and that has been a massive thing for me, is, when there's certain opportunities coming up that look amazing, but that's going to take away from the specific thing that you're trying to build. Learning to say no has been such a massive lesson. That's really interesting. And super important too, of like what to say no to and what to say yes to, and having boundaries. And I think that.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Could you tell me any examples of something that you've had to say no to that maybe tempted you, another commercial opportunity when?
Oh, for sure. Even just as a creator, having offers, working with some certain brands that may potentially, that it's great. There's, a large amount that they want to pay you, but it's not aligned with your specific brand or mission, or maybe there's some ethos, a part of their brand that just doesn't go, with kind of like your values. And so I think staying true to your values and mission and vision is so important. And it can be super easy to think, oh, this is going to be such an amazing, like, cash injection of like this brand campaign, for example. But looking, you really need to think like long term with a lot of decisions too. You know, this could come back and like not be the best for the future. And sure, like I might have to take a little bit of a pay cut now, but staying true to my mission and vision, I think is super important.
Very interesting. Any example you could speak to?
What was the question?
So on an opportunity where maybe, you know, you're in the middle of, you're in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
And then another opportunity comes to you and you're like, oh, that's actually quite tempting, but it might deter you off the road.
Yeah, I think keeping on the straight and narrow, especially in a startup, you know, you have your plan to get your product or service to market, and you have to stick to that. Now, obviously, there's the biggest word in founders' history is probably pivot, and a lot of people do. They pivot to different things because they have to adapt. Maybe the product's not what they wanted it to do. The MVP product's not right. They might have to change it up a little bit. That's okay. But I think the plan to get to that stage has to be planned out perfectly. And, you know, sometimes, you know, employees come to you, oh, I've got this opportunity, I've got this opportunity, I've got that. And sometimes you have to just take a step back because sometimes it sounds really great. Like I had a call today with our head of growth, and he came to me talking about offers and cashback rewards for Quick. And I said, like, you know, we've signed up with a partner already. We've built that out. How are we going to build out another offers page for certain offers in a local region? And I just said, look, you know, let's stick to where we are and keep on the straight and narrow. I mean, look, if that opportunity becomes better than what we have already, maybe we can look at that. But I'm a key thinker where it comes to, if you've got a plan, stick to it. If you need to pivot for any reason, pivot, but you've got to pivot for the right reasons.
Very good. Okay, that actually segues into it. Firstly, that's great. Let me ask you both something. So, you know, starting is always the toughest part of any journey, right? Going to the gym, whatever it may be. Getting your first paying customers in any business. It's funny, you both had something in common, which was you were good at something, and then someone was like, oh, I'll pay you for that. And you were like, damn, okay. And then that gave you the fuel and fire. But when you actually, in your case, Quick, in your case, Creatorversity, what were some of the challenges of finding your first paying customers? And yeah, share the story.
So I think for me now, I'm still pre-revenue. I haven't got to launch yet, so I haven't got users on our platform. But we do have people on our wait list, just shy of 1,000. So we're getting there. But if I talk about as this is a founders podcast, I'll talk about my previous business. Yeah. Getting users, getting businesses, or getting consumers to your platform is pretty hard. It's actually the hardest thing you'll do, right? And the way you do it, especially in the US market, is your narrative that you push across about your business and yourself. If you target a business for a specific service that you're offering, you're going to get users, you're going to get people to your platform who are going to download your app or use you as a service. So I think for me, and what I'm learning from my previous business going into Quick is the narrative that you're pushing across, getting users to your platform is extremely hard, but the marketing aspect, especially when you're targeting consumers, everything has to be spot on. The look, the feel, the colors, the logo, the website, those things, especially in my student demographic, that is something that they look at all the time. When they're scrolling through TikTok and they're seeing a content creator creating the content, what shirt color is she wearing? What is he or she doing at that time? Is she taking a stroll in the park? What is happening at that moment to make that user download your app? And that is key.
So let's say, you know, just giving Quick as an example, I know you're launching very soon. Preemptively, how do you think what is the best approach in your opinion to getting the first user? You know, you've got a wait list, but what's going to be the biggest challenge ahead for you?
I think I'm really pushing out on the TikTok market. I really want to push out on TikTok. I think students are obsessed with it. And when they're scrolling through to see Quick coming up, to download the app through content creators, through Spark ads, through just our own company page creating content and pushing it out, that's going to be key. And getting users to the platform is how we're going to monetize. And you know, once they start spending on the Quick card, they will, that's charge. That will be where we are.
Very cool. And Creatorversity, you're not pre-revenue, from what I understand. Is that correct? Or
No, we're not. Yeah.
Okay.
But we do have a new iteration.
Oh.
So we have created an app, which we are about to launch. But we've had different mastermind programs with Creatorversity. So we've run a 3-month online live program where creators and entrepreneurs come in and learn from experts in the creator economy. And we've gone through a few different iterations, but one thing that I found with our students, it's the hardest part is starting. So whether you're starting a business, a brand, you're wanting to build up your personal brand, that's going to be the hardest part. And I think something that I always tell students or anyone that's starting out is just start. And it's not going to be perfect when you start. It's going to be messy, and
Definitely.
you have to learn how to take messy action and start before you're ready. Because the thing is, there's actually never going to be a day where you feel, this is the day I finally feel ready. That day is actually never going to come. So you actually just have to push through, and the repetition and the consistency with either, building a business or pushing out content or building your brand, that is what's going to give you the reinforcement and the confidence to then feel, okay, like this is, moving the needle, and it's going to feel like you can actually, do the thing. But the hardest part is definitely starting. And I think even if you don't know what type of business or brand you're wanting to start, just start posting content, because like what you touched on, it's all about the messaging. And now, in this day and age with social media, and what we're seeing as a culture around the world is that people are wanting to consume products and consume certain businesses if they align with the certain values, mission, and vision of that company. And a lot of people now are choosing, businesses that they want to support through knowing the founders. And so even if you don't know what type of business or brand, coming through Creatorversity and, just learning how to, start building a brand. Even if you don't know what specific product you want to create or business, just even having a personal brand that, people will then have the know, like, and trust factor, so that whatever you create in the future, people will know you.
Okay.
And so I think that the shift is definitely come in terms of businesses. And, before in the past, people would just look at, okay, this is like, I like this fashion brand, or, I like this specific product. But now a lot of people are actually like, wait, who's the founder? And people really want to know, the story, but even behind the founder. And you don't even have to, create content if you don't want to show your face, for example.
Why do you think people more now than ever care about who the founder is?
So we've definitely had a global shift, for sure. Even the younger generation coming up, of people like,
I think it's authenticity as well.
For sure, authenticity, and also, I think a lot of people are really looking at like kind of what the larger picture is, and like how we can, even help the planet with certain businesses. And that a lot of the younger generation now, they want to support brands and businesses that are, even like helping out with sustainability, or like having some sort of mission behind whatever it is they're creating. And that's actually a massive ethos and mission behind Creatorversity, is to inspire entrepreneurs and creators that are coming in to think about some way that their brand and business can also help give back to the planet in some certain way.
We're getting gems today, huh?
Yeah, I absolutely echo everything you've said, Danielle. I think that is exactly spot on. You did touch on you're developing a new app. Really cool. And, we're going through an app development ourselves. How are you finding that?
It's been a massive learning process, for sure. I've never built an app before. I've always loved learning about tech, and, it just goes to show when you want to create something, you'll just figure it out, I never knew how to build an app before, and the direction that I want to go is building a app platform that can, be able to reach more users and have more impact. And so you can learn anything that you want when you put your mind to it.
I think you're so right on that. I think 10, 15 years ago, it was about how great your website looks, how amazing that is. Now it's about, you want to open the app store, you want to download your app, and you want to use it on a daily basis, and you want to make it so fun and engaging for that user, in my case, a student, to open the app on a daily basis. And that's why, as I said, the narrative, the design, the colors that are used is so key. And I'm sure you're going through that as well now.
For sure. It's been been a really fun learning process. Yeah, definitely. How has it been for you learning about all this? Did you have any experience before? Or what inspired you to start your app?
Yeah, so I think the app side of things has always been my sort of specialty, I guess, coming from the IT world. So when building our app, it was about choosing the right people on the app journey with me. So when it came to the design aspect, making sure that the designer knows how to design in the way that she saw my vision. And, you know, my designer's, she's ex-Amazon, she's ex-Apple, she's ex-Google as well. So she has a lot of experience in that space, which really helped. And if she's watching now, thank you very much.
And she's editing, isn't she?
Pardon?
What?
And yeah, so she was really pivotal on that journey. And then obviously just finding people in the dev space who can code the back end, integrate with partners. As we said, we have to be really integratable, APIs. And that's where my expertise came in managing that project, because that is our business. The app is our business, and it has to be friendly, it has to be user engaging, and it has to be fast and quick. We don't want any bugs that are going to turn off a student. So yeah, for us, you know, the app is key.
Has to be quick. Love it. And I think you touched on something so important of, even if you don't know a certain aspect or a certain field within your business, I think this is what some of the best founders do, is like knowing every aspect of your business, even though if you don't have a background in app development, learning about it. I think it's so important as a founder. And I think that's some of the best companies. You need to know what's going on in every aspect of your business, even if you have, you know, other people that are helping you with it.
I also find that the hardest thing for a founder, well, my hardest thing, correct me if you've got it, is delegation. And when I found that really, really hard at the start, is to delegate tasks to staff, to employees. And I've recently, since moving to America, I've really learned how to do that really well. And giving someone a task and not micromanaging them. They've got a task. You've got to trust them that you've hired them. You know that they can do that job. And, you know, if you're micromanaging something, you're never going to get anything done. And that's what I found really hard, is delegation. And I've really worked on that myself. And I can say wholeheartedly, I've definitely got better at it.
Congratulations. Because that is definitely one of the hardest things. I've had to learn through that too. And it's a messy process in the beginning, because it's hard to give over your baby of what you've created to, you know, other people. And I think learning to trust and like give, you know, have other people have a little bit of input and say, I think that's been a massive thing that I've had to learn as well, the delegation piece.
It's just another founder problem that we work through.
Gosh, guys, make it sound so no, I'm joking.
Also, like, a founder's inner circle, I find, is really key as well. So speaking to other founders like yourself, I think it's really good to bounce ideas off each other, because they've been through it. They're going through it on a daily basis. So having an inner circle of founders that you can speak to, even like, you know, these networking events where you're just meeting different founders, as I said, LinkedIn, going back to that, there's so much you can learn from other founders, and then obviously that they can learn off yourself. And that is key to growth, key to scale, because, you know, if you can get into an inner circle with ex-founders or unicorn founders who've been there, done that 4 or 5 times, you know, you're gonna really learn a lot.
Oh, 100%. And this is one of the core reasons we created Creatorversity as well, is I found in the beginning, you know, back when creators, influencers wasn't really a thing, and trying to find other people that were doing similar things, it was really hard. You know, I was having to travel across the world to kind of surround myself in communities. And so having community aspect, especially whenever you're creating anything new, whether a business, brand, or you're wanting to get into the world of content creation, having that supportive community is so important, especially when, you know, you're starting anything new and it has, you know, a deep piece of you and your heart in it. It's like your little baby. And so I always recommend to people, you know, if you don't have the repetition of seeing, you know, if you haven't even started your brand or business yet, like kind of keeping it close to your heart is super important, and like sharing it with people that you think that will also protect it as well, because it could be so easy to share it with, certain people that maybe they don't have any experience in that. So they could be expressing some of their limiting beliefs of either what they've experienced in their life, or, maybe they just don't know anything about that industry. Right. Yeah. So I think having
what do you look for in an employee or a potential partner? Any major key things?
Yeah, and for partnerships and employers, I think synergy for sure, timing, the right energy, and passion and enthusiasm and positivity as well. That's a really big thing, is having your inner circle and either brand, like people that you're partnering with, have the same growth mindset and are have like they don't have to have exact experience in like what you're creating, but I think the mindset piece is honestly the biggest portion. Yeah.
In other words, investing in the person, right?
Yeah.
That's really
I like
nice.
that.
Yeah.
I think for me, we've got, I think, 5 employees now at Quick, and I think it was understanding my vision. That was really key. And I wanted them to understand what I've been through with Quick and to understand it themselves so that they can help me scale the business. So whether it's like my social media manager, she is a student and she understands the hardships that she went through to get a bank account and build credit. She's also a foreign national coming to the US. So that's why I instantly just, fell in love with her when I met her. And I hired her on the spot. I said, you'd be a great hire. And she's done really well for us so far. And that's what I'm trying to instill in my employees, is the vision that they have, as well as myself. We can all bring our visions together to really scale the business.
Very cool. Okay. And then just finally, just takeaways on that. In terms of the next hire, how mapped is it? How spontaneous is it? How, do you know the next hire you're going to make?
It's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
You never know. It just hits your lap. And, you could be on a call and be like, wow, that guy, if I had someone like that, or that girl, they would do wonders for me. And there was one, last week I heard about someone who came into the US, and I was at a dinner with him, and he was telling me about what he does. And I just fell in love with his passion for his work and how he goes about doing it. Pardon?
What did he do?
He was a sales SVR for a cloud company. And honestly, that's just the way that he can talk to customers, talk to potential partners was something that I don't have. I'm not a salesman, and I'll never want to be a salesman because I think it's a complete different role. And it's not something that I consider myself good at. But that's why when I can see talent, I'll grab it instantly.
I think I know who we're talking about. And yeah, he's a bullet, right?
He's
put it into
he's brilliant.
Danielle, similar?
Yeah, very similar. Like you touched on, it's like you never really know unless if there is a specific role that is coming in. But from my experiences, it usually happens at the perfect time.
Yeah,
or you have someone in the back of your mind that would be like, oh, that person would be great at this. And I think it really comes down to the person. Like, do you want to be like, would you spend many years with this person? Yeah. And I think it's like, if you're thinking of like partnering with anyone like in business or anything, it's like building a relationship. Yeah. It's like you have to, really, really enjoy like time with that person, who that person is on an individual level. Yeah. I think that's so important.
And what you said about the synergy is really key as well. There has to be synergy, especially when it's not employees and it's just partners with other businesses. You've got to see that there's growth between you and you're helping each other. It's not just one hand pulling the other, because synergy is where you can both scale and both grow. Whether it's in our case, partnering up with a company who's got loads of students on their platform and we can tap in as a value add, that's where Quick can come in. But on the other side, we could be pushing them customers for things that they offer as a value add as well. So it's always a push and pull when it comes to partnerships, especially when you're, in the B2B space. But yeah, with employees, I think it's really the vision. They have to understand your vision. And when you spot someone who's good at their job, grab them.
For sure. And I think passion and excitement too is just so, because it's like you feed off of that energy as well. Yeah. And the growth mindset and the growing together, and someone that understands what you're building and also loves it as well, and lives, eats, and breathes it, I think is super important.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on from that briefly. That was really good. Congratulations, Benji. You just raised money.
Yes, we did.
Congratulations.
Yes.
How was that?
Very, very, very hard. It's not really a raising market at the moment, as other founders will contest to as well.
Why?
I think it's just tough to get money at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's, everyone's sort of in the AI space, SpaceX, those sort of, biotech companies, space companies. And, if you're in the fintech space, it might be a little bit harder to get people to invest in you. And I think, especially early stage, when you don't have a product to market, it's about me as a founder. It's about a founder that they're investing in, because the founder can pivot into different things. So it really is myself as the founder who was managed to close this round off. It took us about 3 months, just over 3 months to get it closed. But prior to the 3 months, we were opening doors, speaking to different VCs, some angels. At the moment, we're fully angel backed, and probably our next round will be backed by a VC.
How many people did you speak to?
The list is over 150
really
people, easy. And it was just call after call after call. And bear in mind, all my previous businesses have been bootstrapped. I've never raised before. So it's a complete different world. And I think the next question you're going to ask me is, why didn't you bootstrap this business? I'll answer it in a second. But yeah, the difference, the reason why we had to speak to so many people is because, a lot of angels are like, they get you to due diligence, you give them over what your deck, and they sometimes they lead you on a little bit, and you have to play the game as well, because that's why you have to have a lot in your pipeline to close off a round. You speak to 150 people and 3 people will invest. So it's really just, it's a numbers game. But speaking to the right VCs or angels is key. Getting intros to those VCs or angels via other founders, very helpful. Cold calling them, cold reach is really tough. These VCs, these angels, they get thousands of pitch decks a day. And, you need to really stand out. And to stand out, it's by having another founder reach out and put in a good word for you. Really, really helps. And that's why it comes down to the inner circle of having an inner circle with different founders. And bootstrapping versus angel back, VC back companies. It goes back to, there's so many different things to think about. Dilution. Do you need the money? How quickly do you want to scale? Are you answering to VCs? Are you worried about profit, or are you more involved in revenue? So I think my previous businesses were bootstrapped because it didn't need money to scale. We off the bat, we had IT contracts, we had players in the space that we could really work with. But I think in Quick's case, to scale and get to market, especially in the US, you need to be VC backed and have money. And I'm going to have a lot of hate for that, what I've just said. But
why?
Because there's bootstrap founders who've absolutely killed it and exited businesses, and they'll talk about bootstrapping everything that they do, and they'll never talk about, I don't want to raise, I'll never raise.
Oh, look, you're a D2C business, right?
Yeah, I
know that you're in your previous businesses, you've predominantly been B2B, which is more scalable because you're just working on a deal here, a deal there. And now you're having to wrestle with your Meta and your TikTok and your Facebook. And
I think also the terms that you give out when you're raising, if you need to negotiate really well, because you don't want to be that founder who gets diluted to under 3% of a business that they started, and they sell for hundreds of million and they end up with $500,000 or $1 million in their account once they've sold. So I think the negotiation, the dilution, you need to be really mindful of, and you also need to be mindful of how many rounds of funding you want to go for. If you want to start doing a pre-seed, a seed, a series A, B, C, D, endless, you're going to get diluted every time. And What you don't want is a down round where your valuation in seed was high, and then you've had to reduce your valuation for Series A, and you've got to dilute a lot, and you don't want to be in that position.
Interesting. That's a very honest answer,
Yeah.
actually. So I appreciate that. And because Danielle, you're thinking about it, so is that enticing?
Yes. I know it's a long road from what you've talked about.
Because you're bootstrapped, right?
I am completely bootstrapped.
Amazing.
I've bootstrapped everything. And yeah, I am starting to look to raise. Specifically just because, yeah, with where we're going, having the right members on the team is a core aspect for us. And with the potential and, where the company is going to be, I really think that it will be super valuable to have the right people on the team, a part of the team.
Yeah, I think also when it comes to raising versus bootstrap is how fast and scalability you have to go when you're VC backed to when you're bootstrapped. If you're VC backed, you've got to really scale at a rapid pace because they're pushing for an exit and they're on you to do that. And I think when you're bootstrapped,
Is that healthy? No, pressure is good.
Pressure's great, but sometimes if you push too hard on things, it could drop down to nothing.
How do you manage that?
For me personally, my investors have been really, really helpful. They've been, there's a lot of synergy there with the people that I have on board, and I was really picky with the people I wanted to bring on. I wasn't just after someone who can write me a check. I really wanted to have people on who's going to add a lot of value. So I actually did my first quarterly update to my shareholders yesterday. And all of them came back saying, love the email. Thanks so much. That's really insightful. And it's not something that, you need to be on a call with them all the time, because I've picked them and they're people that is going to help me scale. But I think there's VCs out there that, they don't really care about if it's profitable now. They want to push the revenue, push till you get really where you want to be so that they can exit.
For sure. So in other words, communication is key in managing the relationship.
Communication is key, and also picking the right investor. Sometimes you can get grabbed and say, oh, wow, he's writing me $1 million check, but it might be the $1 million check that actually cripples your business.
For sure. Okay. So Danielle, obviously you're thinking about it. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to you, Benji, just based on your previous experience. What did call 1 look like compared to call 150, let's say?
Call 1 was absolutely terrible. And because I said I've never raised before. So I was just talking about quick, and really it wasn't about the product a lot of them were interested in. It was more as me as a founder, especially because it was so early on. There's no numbers to give. It's all projected. So, we're not, talking about Series A where it's black and white. We're talking with just an idea with an MVP getting to market quite soon. So, yeah, I think call 1 was just awful. And my biggest takeaway was, if you're going through a list and you know who you want to end up speaking to, put them right at the end of your list. Speak to them right at the end. Make them call 150, make them call 200, because what you don't want to do is burn that bridge so early on. Because realistically, if you speak to a VC that you really want on early on and you don't have a good call, it's very unlikely that you're going to speak to them again. Especially in that round, maybe rounds down the line when you've got something going for you. But you want to keep the ones that you really want on board towards the end when you've polished your pitch, and the pitch is key. What they see in you, what your vision is, and maybe some previous businesses that you've been involved in. They'd like to see a little bit of history. And look, I've got an investor now who said to me, Benjamin, I don't love the product. It's great. I think you'll smash it, but I'm investing in you as a person because I feel like you can take this business to where it needs to be. And those are the investors that you really want to have.
Why did he say that?
Pardon?
No, I'm joking.
And I think that's, as I said, early on, especially when you're pre-revenue, it's all about you as a founder.
Yeah. Cool.
But I think in your case, Danielle, obviously you're post-revenue, so you've got some metrics there. You've got users on your platform. You're going for your app build at the moment. So not to say it's going to be easier, but it will make your life better speaking to people because you've got a product to show them and you've got user case, and obviously you're revenue driven.
For sure. And actually, from what I've seen, so I've actually already been approached by certain founders and companies that are wanting to get involved.
Cool.
Strictly because of the brand that
Yeah.
I've built.
Yeah.
And so this goes down to how much opportunity it really has when you have built a personal brand for yourself. Because, you know, they're obviously going to do the research. And if you've, you know, have that know, like, and trust factor of, you know, other companies that you've partnered with in the past or what you've built, that's why it's so amazing to be able to document and create, you know, your brand and show from there. But it's been super interesting, and that's what's really been getting the gears going in terms of doing the fundraising, is the interest that we've had and where we're going to be scaling to. It's for the growth that we're going to do. It's going to be very helpful to have.
And I think that's what, you know, as you said, the narrative, that the hype that you build around you as a person, as well as your business, is key, because you need to get that traction from people looking at you to see that there is something there, that we're investable. Like, for me, I was pushing out LinkedIn content throughout my whole raise. Yeah. And I think when I got to my 25th, 30th call, I started seeing these VCs like, oh, I've seen your post on LinkedIn. Like, you're starting to really build that
brand image.
That brand image, exactly. Thank you. That brand image about you as a person, as a founder, as well as Quick as well. And they like that. They like to see that there's something there. You know, there's a lot of founders also who can raise in stealth mode. And mate, if they can do that, well done to them, because, you know, you're building off absolutely no brand. You're just building off a pitch deck, and VCs sometimes, you know, they can go and invest in that. But, you know, if you're ready to go and you can push out content, it's really key, because, you know, that's where VCs and investors see you and see your product.
100%. I definitely agree with all of that.
Did you have any other questions maybe for someone who's just had 150 calls, maybe plus?
Ooh, yeah. What would be maybe one of your number one tips that you would give for someone that's new into fundraising?
So when I jumped on my first one was awful. But as I got going, I realized bullet point your call. So what, how, why, and what that did was it just pushed off what I'm trying to do in like 4 or 5 bullet points. Get it to them quick, because you need to stand out. There's thousands of calls in a week they're going to take. So you need to polish your pitch to have just bullet point it in a way where you've talked about yourself, you've spoken about your product, how you're going to scale it, what your product is, and why you want this investment. And that really helps them understand, as well as your pitch deck. Your pitch deck has to be spot on. You know, it can't be a PowerPoint presentation. They like it in a PDF format. You know, your colors, your branding, your narrative, competitors in there as well. They really like to see that. So yeah, your pitch deck is key. I wouldn't go, you know, full out on images and things like that, but, you know, they look at it, they go through 5-6 slides. I wouldn't make it more than about 6. And gives them a good overview of what you're doing.
Were there any particular calls you had where you got off and you were like, I smashed that out the park? And if so, what was the structure of that call?
Yeah, so great question. There were so many calls that happened like that, but it didn't actually transpire into anything. Because that sometimes happens. You think like you've really done well on the call, and also maybe the VC or the investor you're speaking to is trying to be nice, and they're not, you know, trying to tell you another thing. But, you know, there were some really good calls where I feel like I smashed it, and those are the ones where I closed. Like, there was one of my investors now. I told him about the product. It was a Friday afternoon. I scheduled the call in on Tuesday, I think, and we had the call on Friday. It was like, I remember it very, very clearly. It was like 12 o'clock. I called him up on 12. He actually said to me, oh, can I call you back in 10 minutes? I said, cool, let's speak in 10 minutes. He called me back. I pitched quick. As I said, this was like my going into like 100th call realistically. And he literally said, I gave my pitch. I said my 4 or 5 bullet points, told him what Quick's about, told him my previous businesses that I've been involved in, and how this is going to scale and how we can get going.
Is this in order?
Yeah. And straight away, he he wrote a check for 100 grand. And
Did he?
that was within, I think I was on that call for about 35 minutes. He just absolutely loved the product, loved what we were trying to do. And he wrote the check and, signed the terms and wired the money about 3 days later.
Wow. There you go. Sounds good.
Amazing. Congratulations.
And that in itself, I thought was not normal. I don't think that is something that happens regularly. I think there's some VCs that take 2-3 weeks to come back to you. They go through their own due diligence. But I think angel investors work a lot faster than VCs because they either love it or hate it and they move on. And that's why we did an angel round at the start to build that relationship with our investors.
Okay, so I've got like a 2-part question for both of you now. Particularly one's more for you in the sense of, the raise that you just did. How did you handle the no's? And then by extension of that, in general, how do you as a founder handle setbacks?
Okay, great question. So I think handling the no's were really hard at the start because it was mostly no's at the start because my pitch was shit, put it that way, put it bluntly. So it's really about having a mindset where you need to move on very quickly. And if you've got a pipeline that you're speaking to, as I said, over 100 VCs or angels, it helps because there's thousands you can speak to across the world. Even you've got VCs in Singapore who will invest in a company in the US. You've got VCs in the UK who will invest in companies in the US. So there's so many that you can speak to. So in
other words, knowing that you can pick it up and start again tomorrow.
You can keep going. You can just keep going. There's so many VCs out there. So if you get a no, that it will dishearten you at the start, but then it's just another number and you just keep moving forward and the one that you need will come.
You said you're not a salesman. Would you say you've become a bit of a salesman in this process?
Yeah, it's not the best, but you have to be. You have to really sell yourself. And it was hard at the start. And as I said, that's why you get better and better. And I think what I was doing was bullet pointing my calls, and I keep going back to that. It really, really helped because, they get across your point and they understand it very quickly, and then they can move on to the next question. So yeah, I think I definitely have got better at it. It's taken its time. As I said, I really over, 80 calls where I really started having like meaningful conversations. And yeah, I think, becoming the inner sales of me has definitely come out.
And setbacks in general?
Setbacks in particularly with the raise? Yeah.
No.
In general,
as a founder.
Yeah. So look, there's always setbacks. I had one the other week where we had to go through our dev team giving us a 6-week delay on certain things that we wanted to have in the app. And, that's a setback to launch. And that hurts because you're working towards a launch date. You've set it in stone, and, then you get the call from the devs, and it's a tough one to take. But you have to be strong as a founder. You have to pivot around it. You have to make it a plus to your team so that you don't offer them bad energy. You always want to give off the best thing. The best energy. So, my message to the team at that time was, look, we've hit a setback, but this is going to come out. We're going to come out stronger on the other side.
And that's great. And that's the communication to your team, which is for sure important. But we spoke that day. If you remember.
Yeah.
Did you receive any advice that maybe came into fruition, or do you happen to remember anything?
I think that from yourself, you came and said to me, look, you can't let it hit you down. And you need to give off that good impression to your team because you don't want to have that setback come across as bad energy.
And like you said, the issue itself that we discussed was it was a 6-week delay. And we spoke about, what could be done in those 6 weeks. Did anything...
Yeah, as in, what can happen in that 6 weeks is you can set up different partnership calls. You can adapt the app in different ways while we're waiting for certain things to come. So yeah, I'm working, as I said, I put the financial literacy part to the side a little bit, but now I brought that back to the top because we've got a little bit more time to do that. So, it's not about just a 6-week delay where you're doing nothing. There's always something to be done. And
so you could say that the 6 weeks was beneficial.
It was. It's now looking back on it, it did help.
But it got you down and disheartened.
It did.
So what is that? I mean, I once heard Kevin O'Leary, gotta love Mr. Wonderful. He once said that he wakes up in the morning and he's got so many businesses, right, that he has vested interest in. and he'll wake up and he'll receive a call and it will say, game over, this has happened, Armageddon, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And within fair reason, he could let that get him down. But he said there's been so many iterations in his life where that's happened. And then a few hours later, he's received a call from a different business saying, the time has come, we've got the offer on the table, shall we sell? And then all of a sudden he's made, significant money.
Yeah.
And he said that he wished he knew when he was younger about the natural ebb and flow of things. And if he would have known, he would have, not been hit so hard by the negatives. And I think what you said, like in those 6 weeks that you've been able to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it depends on the person. If you're an emotional person, it's very hard to take negative things happening in your business. But you need to be able to be strong and set those things apart so that you can push off positive energy to keep things going.
Very good. And sorry, Danielle, I was just going to say, I kind of threw a few extra questions as to Benji, but just in general, like the setbacks of being a founder and how to deal with them.
For sure. And I think a great thing to know is that every rejection is redirection. So that I can only say now, looking back, that I am so thankful for all the no's, to be honest. Like, those were not
You learn
aligned.
from them, right?
You learn so much from them. And how else are you going to learn? And so, we go through these certain things in life and go through the, certain rejections or, pitfalls or kind of harder lessons, but we actually have to go through that to learn to become the best versions of ourselves and to become like where we need to be at in our business for that next stage. Yeah. So whenever, and like you said, like you can only see that from the future. So just knowing that, like, if you are having any, rejections or some pitfalls within the business, just knowing that it's a ebb and flow of life, and life is always going to go up and down, right? So it's as long as you're looking at it in the right perspective, and this is where so much of business comes down to mindset, really, and being able to learn and grow from all the no's and knowing when to pivot. Maybe that was the insight you needed to hear. Like maybe it was a blind spot that you didn't see within yourself or your business. Yeah. Oh, wait, actually, you know what? I think that he's right. Like I should, pivot this little thing. And that's where I think a lot of like iterations and growth comes, like with building any product or any type of your brand or business. And sometimes it's just straight up not aligned. Like you and that person are just not meant to work together. And, being thankful for that no, because it's going to make room for the people that are meant to be like in your life or come in to help you with your business. It's going to be that much better. And you don't really know that until the future. So I think mindset is such a key aspect, and having like you're such a good friend for, when you were going through that moment. And that's why it's so important to have amazing people
in a circle,
because honestly, like as an entrepreneur, like you will like go through the depths, like the deepest, darkest depths of your soul sometimes with certain things, especially if you really love what you do. And it can, having like someone that can, believe in you or give you some, advice. But I think it also comes down to like that belief really does have to come from within, and you really have to fully trust and believe in what you're doing. Because when you're trying to build something big, you will be hit with a lot of things that are going to make you believe that you can't do it. So, I have found that you'll be tested in a lot of ways. Of, how bad do you want it? How bad do you actually believe in yourself? And, you will be tested in times where it feels like no one else believes in what you're creating. And that's when you really have to truly, fully believe in what you're doing. Yeah. And other people are only also going to believe in what you're doing if they believe that you believe in what you're doing.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it really, it's such a big mindset game, and really the belief in yourself has to be insane.
Yeah. I think also like for me personally, I love constructive criticism. Like people who give me criticism, it really makes me a stronger person to learn and adapt to what I need to do to become a better person, to become a better founder, become a better boss, to become a better CEO. So I think I don't know if that's the same for you, but definitely constructive criticism really helps in your journey.
Oh, for sure. I think that's so important, and having mentors and the right people that can help guide you, and because sometimes like you can't see your blind spots. That's why it's so important to have people around you that can give you that constructive criticism. And I remember in like my early stages, like honestly that was a hard thing for me. Of it can be sometimes hard, like being criticized with certain things.
Definitely.
But it's gonna be what's helped push you to learn and grow. And now I'm so thankful for all the constructive criticism.
Sure.
And there's definitely a difference between like constructive criticism or just like straight up criticism. Like
I also
straight
like-
up hate.
I also think like Jacob, you're a new time founder now with Box. So talk to us about a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Plugging me in my own show. No, yeah, Box is awesome. I'm having the best time with it actually. Bootstrapped as well. I was working at Global University Systems, which is the largest higher education ecosystem in the world, and a good friend of mine, ex-Amazon, was there for almost 10 years. Pure logistics operations, knows how to get product A to product B. He launched the first ever robotics center in the UK, managing like hundreds of people. And I was, obviously coming from education. He came to me and said, "Listen, bro, I've got this product. Tell me what you think." Saw this product. What was it? It was a welcome package for international students. In other words, students get to their accommodation, they get to their dormitories, and there's nothing there. Especially foreign nationals going to a new place, like where do I go and buy bedding? Where do I buy pots and pans? What's the best price? Do I get it on Amazon? Is it expensive? And we really, well, I should say James, my co-founder, he just found an incredible opportunity to not only find a convenient way to prevent that problem from happening and scrambling all over the place when all they want to do is move in and start school, but to do it at a cost-effective way, especially for students where the cost of living crisis is real. And, I'm a co-founder of a university, College of Esports, shout out to them, in London. And I witnessed firsthand the struggles of our students, particularly in London, trying to get accommodation and, being the founder of Box has been really amazing because, he brought me this product and I said, I think this is a winning ticket here. And as soon as I started speaking to recruitment agents who were sending students around the world, they ate it. They ate it alive.
Yeah. I think also there's a lot of synergy between Quick and Box as well when it comes to, the student. Maybe even one day we can put a Quick card in one of the boxes that you send out.
We can if you pay the right price. No, seriously, for sure. Like, when at the moment when you open the box, there's a QR code and you actually get digital benefits as well. So let me just, walk you through the student journey with us. They arrive at the accommodation. There's a box waiting for them already there.
Amazing.
They open it up and it's got their bedding, crockery, cutlery, pots, pans, kitchen knives, whatever they need, bottle opener. And then there's a QR code which they scan. And upon scanning, they get access to discounts on retailers, access to a gym, access to a doctor, financial advice if they need it. And interestingly, there are other players in the space, but they're all D2C.
Yeah,
they're on TikTok and Instagram, and they're trying to find individual students. Having come from education, I think what we did really well is have a unique route to market, which in this case was working with recruitment agents that are sending thousands of students across the world every single day, and just being able to add that to their narrative. But yeah, no, thanks for that.
Wishing you all the best with that.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this summer's obviously when everyone's moving around.
New freshers year, baby.
It's a very exciting time for us for sure. I do just want to ask one closing question to you both. And so closing question. I'm going to ask you to keep this to 30 seconds if possible. One piece of advice you wish you knew that you can bestow onto someone else.
I think you need to take every day in stride. You're not going to know everything from day one. It might be that, day 365 is where you really get to grips with things. So take every day slowly, take it all in, learn from other founders, watch videos, watch podcasts, and really understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to solve before pushing out to market. What you don't want to do is push out a product that has bugs, that's not ready, just to get it to market, just to go, I can get so many users. It's about building a business that works and that doesn't have bugs, especially in the app world. So as I said, just take things slowly, build the right product, build it in the right frame of mind, and you'll scale really quickly.
Nice.
Love that.
Okay, fine. So 30 seconds answer. Just any piece of advice that you would give a aspiring founder.
So a piece of advice would be just start. Whether it is that brand or that business that you've always dreamed of creating, the dream is in your heart for a reason, and you're absolutely able to create it into reality. So just start. You're never going to feel ready. Start today. Let this be your sign to start right now.
Love that.
Don't wait,
Yeah.
and you will be able to do it.
Very cool.
Get started quick.
Enough now. You're going to run out of money. You have to do another raise at the end of the podcast. All right, guys. Listen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. And we'll see you both again very soon, I hope.
Cool. Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Of course.
Thank you.